Welcome to Manga Machinations! This is episode number 451, and this week we're doing a one-shot on Is Love the Answer? I'm Dakazu, and with me is Darfox8,
Hello, everybody.
Morgana Santilli,
Hi there.
and Seamus2389.
Hello.
Hello everybody, welcome to our Pride in Panels, which is what we do for Pride Month here. We're going to be looking at LGBTQ plus manga. And for our main segment, we're reading Uta Isaki's Is Love the Answer? Before we get started, we are streaming live on YouTube right now. That's where we're doing our recording. I want to thank the people in the chat. Looks like we got Chris from Canada there so far. Maybe Tyler will show up. Darfox is on camera, on screen, in his green shirt. And yeah, we just want to make sure we shout this out at the beginning of the episodes now. And also, if you want to support us, you can donate to our coffee, or buy us a coffee, which is ko-i.com/mangamac. And we have people who have donated to our coffee and our thank you page that Darfox made. Thank you so much. But yeah, we're going to get started with this episode. Hail Satan. I mean, smite Satan. I'm here to shout at the devil. I've been playing a lot of Diablo 4.
Yeah, I didn't know where you're going with that.
I was like, yeah, Hail Satan, like what? Today I found out, you know the company Squishables? They make like plush, like round plush toys.
I've heard of them.
They have made a biblically accurate angel plush. So it's got like
Nice.
one big eye in the middle and like a bunch of wings, and it's super cute. And I'm like, this is very tempting to me. Speaking of Satan, they have a bunch of like demon plush too. They're very cute.
Very nice. Now, I do want to ask Darfox and Seamus, how are your chairs? Because you guys both got the same chair.
My chair is it's really good, but it might not be for me because I got a big rumpus, and like I feel like I can pull the chair out more because there's a mechanism in the chair where you can slide it back and forth. I feel like I'm supposed to be pulled out more, but I can't. It just kind of stops at a certain point. So I think for most people it's normal, but for me it's not quite enough. I feel like my legs are too far out. And I could remedy this by like pushing my ass deeper into the chair, because the back of the chair, I'm gonna lean forward a little bit. You in the stream you might be able to see it's like a mesh. So it has give to it. But I also don't want to be just like shoving my ass into like the back of my chair all the time, just like grinding my ass in there. They're like, yeah, this is the right fit.
Just get cozy.
Yeah, so I gotta figure out if I'm basically been using it all day, and it's okay, but it does feel like there's the reason, like, if it was just slightly smaller than the chair I would normally use, it wouldn't be an issue. But I do feel like pressure kind of on my upper leg, kind of right underneath my butt, where like the whole like sciatica pain kind of is.
Oh
I
no.
kind of feel pressure there that I didn't expect to feel. So I don't know if that's just like I'm kind of having a minor bout of sciatica pain, or if it's the chair just like not being comfortable there. So I just have to sit on it for a few days and figure out whether I'm going to send it back or not. I think Seamus' experience is a lot more positive than mine, though.
I think I sent it for like half an hour yesterday. I was like, yeah, it seems like the chair I had back in Ireland.
If you're watching the live stream, this is me just shoving my ass back in there. Just like, you know, it goes, it has give, but it you know, it's like, I feel like mechanisms will break if I keep doing that, right? That's not meant for you to just constantly challenge and push
Right.
back. So
Office chairs are such a gamble. I really want a new one. I have a chair from IKEA. I haven't even, full disclosure, I have not been working at my desk in my office chair because I don't think they make office chairs that are comfortable for pregnant people. but I've been wanting to get a new chair regardless, and it's like there's some really nice ones that people recommend, but they're expensive. And it's like, how will I know if it's any good for me? You know what I mean? Like, how will I don't know, unless I can go and try it out somewhere, but even then, you don't really know until you've sat in it for a while, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Seamus and I, we got it from a website that actually refurbishes chairs. So the chair we're sitting on is actually like a $1,300 chair, but we got it for about $400.
Oh, that's not bad.
Give or take. And the website has a really good reputation because they replace all the cushions and all the arm cushions and basically anything that's cloth that might have got human gunk on it.
Gross.
Gets replaced. It's all brand new. The actual mechanism and the legs of the chair might be used, but I'm sure they have their own like, they check for structural integrity or whatever. So I think it's a pretty good, and then they have like a massive warranty. It's like a 12-year warranty or something like that.
That's pretty great.
Yeah. So I'll send you the link later because it might be worth you perusing that website, and they have a lot of different options. Like, you could put different wheels on it if you're planning to have it on carpet or hardwood floors, or I'm not hardwood, but like a hard floors. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I'm definitely pro refurbished everything. So, and definitely pro not spending $1,300 on a chair. So
yeah. These chairs they're super nice. They're like high end stuff, but it's like, yeah, I think they're meant for like office buildings, but these companies
right.
that can like they can spend a few dozen grand like filling up a whole office with chairs and stuff like that. Not for little old me.
Right.
I need to replace my chair.
You and me, Dakazu, we're the next ones.
The covers and stuff are like kind of peeling. I had to put I have seat covers, so I had to put them over it. Otherwise, it's gonna keep peeling. It's fine. I might replace my computer chair, which is a gamer chair, with a love seat because I need to have space for my doggy to sit next to me while I sit at my computer.
See, I'm pro switching like computer and gamer chairs for like lounging chairs or like sofa chairs. You just keep in mind a lot of times those sit a lot lower. So depending on is your desk a standing desk? Can it shift up and down?
It cannot. So I know exactly the height the love seat will need to be. So I'm gonna look around. I could also like prompt the love seat up on like blocks or whatever. There's ways to get around it, but
yeah,
I still need to go looking. This is just an idea I have. I haven't started looking or executing yet. So
yeah, I've been working on an old we inherited these like antique chairs from my stepfather's parents from their house. They're like from the 70s. So they're that like one of them is orange and one of them is that horrible mustard color. These like upholstered chairs. But they're pretty comfortable, and I've been sitting at one of those working. I have like a portable desk, and just kind of sitting there and working. It's much more comfortable than sitting in an office chair.
oh yeah, that's the right idea.
Yeah.
Smart. But okay, chair talk aside, we are a manga podcast, so we should start talking about some manga stuff. I'm going to start off by doing an email. I have an email from Chris from Canada, who is in the chat right now. This email is titled Spin-offs Manga versus Superhero Comics. Hello team Manga Mac and Cheese.
Delicious.
As per the conversation on the last cast about side stories and spin-offs, this is why I cannot get into American superhero comics, as they are the biggest culprit of this. I don't need to read the 700th iteration of Batman fighting the Joker, and they almost always turn out the same way. 80% of the time, Batman beats Joker. 10% of the time, Joker beats Batman, but still goes to jail. 10% of the time, Batman turns into some traumatized whack job. This is all hyperbole, but that's how it feels. Furthermore, this all makes it so much harder to find what the main plotline is. What stories do you read and when? Often, I've looked up the proper reading order for something like Spawn or The Darkness and saw how much back and forth there was with series that I just noped out of it. I find manga doesn't have this issue, or at least nearly as bad. As you mentioned with Attack on Titan, that is something I have finished the main story and have been reading the side stories. In no way do the side stories retcon, change, or alter the original plot, they only add to it. Which is great, because the reader can get the full story and the original and then get extra lore on the side stories. To me, this doesn't hurt the plot or readability of the story with a beginning, middle, and end. I'm currently reading the prequel of Attack on Titan, and it hasn't hurt or changed the main plot, but only added it to the world building. Also, I know Attack on Titan has a lot of spin-offs, but that's because a lot of light novels were then adapted to manga, so that means there isn't as much as you think. Additionally, with most spin-offs, I find for manga explore other characters from the story or work as sequels and prequels. To me, this is handled so much better than American superhero comics because I just want something with a beginning, middle, and end, which I don't feel I get from superhero comics. Outside of those, I see joke spin-offs where they put the character in high school or junior high, which can be a funny comedy story with titles like Blam, Had. They are so far removed, I don't feel they impact the main story in any meaningful way. What are some stories of your favorite side stories in manga? If you can think of any, you can go with any media. For me, I cannot really think of many outside of Blam and Attack on Titan that I've read. Luckily, I have enjoyed each side stories. Chris from Canada, it's too hot out. Peace out. Oh, that's a lengthy email, Chris. But thank you. Side stories, huh? I can tell you exactly what is a great side story. And that is the Akka 13 Territories Inspection Department side story.
PS, I think.
Not the PS one.
Oh,
it's
not
the one that's not
other
published
one.
in English.
Well, Yen Press publishes Akka 13 and also the PS side story. By the way.
There's a side story that Natsume Ono did called Paula to Michelle. It's about the two rival families from the Jumoku territory. And it is just a lovely, lovely Yuri story. It's fantastic.
Nice. Natsume Ono doing Yuri.
Mm-hmm. But yes, also I heard PS is very good.
I haven't read it. I haven't finished the main story, so.
I mean, Natsume Ono seems like the right person for side stories because she took Ristorante Paradiso and made like a 4-volume spin-off series called Gente.
Right.
Which I didn't like that much. I was like, this is too much.
I think it's 3 volumes. But yes. Yeah, for a lot of spin-offs, I actually get kind of like, oh god, there's another spin-off. Part of this is me being jaded because at Yen we publish a lot of isekai, and the isekai often have like 10 spin-offs, and I'm not sure if they add or anything to. I mean, I haven't been reading them, so I don't know. But I'm just like, oh my god, how can there be so much information? Like, there's a million Sword Art Online stories and different plot lines and things like that, and I still believe that it's more easy to follow than Western superhero comics. And I think the trick with the superhero comics is to not think of it as being a main plot line.
Oh, I thought you were just going to say don't read them.
Well, you could do that. I remember, way back when there was a new run on X-Men that had an all-female team, and I was really, really excited about it. Storm was leading it. I can't remember who wrote it. Oh, Brian Wood. And then he was outed later as a jackass. Surprise! But I remember I was reading it and enjoying it, and then suddenly it crossed over with something else. And I dropped it like it was hot. I was just like, nope.
That's the problem.
Nope.
Even if you start a series, you're like, this seems like good. I can just read this, and then inevitably gotta read the other volume to find out what other series to find out what happens next. It's like, fuck off.
And it was some like crossover. I don't know if it was with Captain America or the Avengers or something, and I was totally not interested in that event. It was an event crossover, and I was just like, I'm totally I just want to know what these ladies are doing. These ex-ladies.
See, the problem, Morgana, is the fans of superhero comics. That's what they're into. They
I
love
know.
those crossovers.
I
so
know. I know.
That's what they want. It's not what I want, but that's what they want, and at least they have something that does it for them.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was, it's important, I think, when you're looking at superhero comics, to not think of it as being. There is no one true plot line. Okay. These are characters in a franchise that writers are being given the ability to play with.
Yep.
And they put them in a different sandbox in every single story, right? And that's why you get stuff retconned, you get this and that, and I also find it exhausting and annoying and difficult to follow. I remember a customer coming in once, and she was really interested in starting to read X-Men because she would, there's a lot that's very appealing about it, right? Like outcasts. There's a whole allegory for the civil rights movement. There's good stuff there. And she wanted to know where to start. And I was like, oh boy. So you can start with the stuff from the 60s or whatever, 60s or 70s. But that's soup dated and a little bit racist, even though they tried. So that's like the beginning, right? If you wanted to start at the very beginning and read things chronologically. I said, but I think your best bet is to pick a character you like and then follow them, because otherwise it's a mess. I don't know where to start with you. But really my advice is just watch the cartoon from the 90s. and that's also true of Batman.
I love it. It's like, don't even look at the comics, just go to the adapted media.
Because it's easy
watch
to follow.
The movie. Yeah, watch the movie. We got some commentary from Chris in chat. Each panel is its own universe for superhero comics, but the number of retcons and how some play into others and then don't. It's all too troublesome. I like to have a good plot line. Like I said, Chris, don't read superhero comics.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I would say there is good plot lines, but there's no single plot line. You just I don't know, you just read like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and then when he goes, you go. Or like Grant Morrison and Rachel Pollack's Doom Patrol. Like that's actually a run. There's a win from like Morrison straight into Pollack. But when she takes over, like that changes.
Or you find the standalones and just do those like Killing Joke or Hush, which I don't know that I necessarily recommend those as like the best, but like they're closed, they're short. I think Hush is 2 volumes, Killing Joke is 1 volume. You kind of get one story and you already know the characters. Everybody knows the characters through osmosis, right? Like everybody knows who the Joker is. Everybody knows who Batman is, who Catwoman is. It's not really.
Yeah, with Batman at least, you do have those stories that are usually in one trade, that you could pick up. Long Halloween is another one.
Court of Owls is longer, but it's like again closed.
Yeah, and I think most famous comics have those kind of like quote unquote self-contained storylines. If you're reading it at the time, it was probably in the middle of Batman issue, whatever. But they just kind of stuck those out and put it in the trade. Yeah, you just it is a crapshoot. I have no idea how they handled it with X-Men, because X-Men is so complicated. There's so many characters in X-Men. But
it's a disaster.
It's so good though. Like or like there's so much magnetism in X-Men, right? It's one of the reasons why it's endured so much. It's just like it's a really cool idea and it has like dozens of iconic characters, but like how the hell do you start now?
Yeah, no, I mean there are a bunch of characters I love, and even then I have a hard time following them. My dad was a big Marvel collector. My husband read X-Men for a while. He was like subscribed to X-Men for a while when we were, early on when we were dating. And so anytime there's like I have a question about X-Men, I just ask my husband, I'm like, how does this relationship work? Who is this? What's going on here? Because he likely knows, but he doesn't know what's going on now, because he too is like, it just got to be too much. It got to be too many different things diverging and things crossing over. So yeah, I mean, don't put yourself through it. You don't have to read superhero comics to be a comics fan. And Chris, you know that. I don't need to tell you that. You like what you like.
If you want some manga stuff that's spin-off, the My Hero Academia spin-off, Vigilantes, it's pretty decent. It's 14 volumes. It's on the app, I think.
It is pretty good. Yeah, I actually read a couple volumes of that. That one, I was surprised that it was good. And actually, it reminded me of X-Men.
Yeah.
Like the Brotherhood of Mutants.
I think the story kind of starts falling apart towards the end. But
that's a lot of manga. That doesn't,
I kind of suspect that character is going to show up in the main story now that they're at the very end. It's kind of my guess. We might see a cameo from them.
Haven't they referenced the whole, like, isn't the plot conceded that is that there's like a drug or something that's giving people quirks?
Yeah, and this is a prequel to the main story.
Yeah, I thought I remember hearing say that, like, during this big old hullabaloo that's happening now, like basically the final fight that's been happening forever now, they did mention the drug stuff, or it came into play somehow. I don't know exactly, but I remember hearing people talk about it.
Yeah, that's why I suspect we might see this character from Vigilantes, but that's pretty decent, Chris. You might want to check that out.
Somewhere that I realize I've seen a lot of spin-offs is actually in BL. Because sometimes you'll get an author who makes a one-shot or even a short series, and then they have secondary characters that are pretty popular, so they go ahead and spin off those characters into another one-shot or small series. And those tend to be pretty good. I mean, you're able to follow a story that's familiar from the perspective of different characters, right?
You're making me think of Asumiko Nakamura's Classmates.
Yes, Classmates is one of them.
And the spin-off based on that shitty fucking teacher.
All right, fair. But I'm also thinking, and we published Sasaki and Miyano, which is a BL series, like a really wholesome, cute high school romance. And that's been spun off into Hirano and Kagiura, which is, follows another couple in the story, and just is their own story. So, you get things like that, and it's nice to kind of have, especially if you're somebody who likes secondary characters, like you really latched onto those characters, you can have, it's basically like having fan fiction, really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have like this extra content. It's like Chris was saying about having, like, the main story and then background lore, right? Extra stuff.
Yeah. Chris is asking in chat if he should read My Hero Academia first or Vigilantes. Definitely read the main series first. Maybe, like, I'm gonna say like 10 or 15 volumes in, you can start reading Vigilantes. You're not gonna get context for when certain characters show up in Vigilantes as, younger forms, unless, like, you read the main story first. Well, yeah, I think we're going to wrap up on your email, Chris. Thanks again for sending it. If you want to send us emails, send them over to mangamachinations@gmail.com, and we will read them. All right, let's move along to a little bit of what you been reading. Morgana, have you been reading anything?
Yes, actually.
Exciting.
I almost forgot, but I went to the library. I think I mentioned this last week, and I borrowed a couple books from Kuma, which is the BL imprint of Denpa. And I read one of them. It's called The Pet Detective Agency. Let me see if I can pull up a link for you guys. Of course, the first results are not Denpa or Kuma's website.
Oh no, the manga Pokey strikes again?
No, it's like Barnes and Noble and stuff, which I might just send you that instead. But I love Ed, I love Denpa, but their websites are terrible. That you can't like search, you can't
bad
like,
SEO, yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. Okay, I just sent you the Barnes Noble link just to give you an idea. So it's a cute, it's a one-shot, single volume BL, pretty chaste. There's nothing like really naughty that happens. But you have this detective who's a former cop who just like rules and regulations weren't for him, so he started his own detective agency. And he has an assistant who's this like young punk. I think he's like 19. He's got like pink hair and he's super big and scary looking, but he's absolutely not scary at all. And this assistant gets along really well with animals. And so the detective agency has kind of ended up becoming a detective agency that finds lost pets, even though this is not the ex-cop's like hope for his business. And our young punk friend is just like super in love with his boss, basically. And it's just like this cute, weird little one-shot BL about, you know, I've got a weakness for detective shit. I've got a weakness for tough guys. I've got a weakness for tough guys who, yeah, I mean the animals are fine too. There's a cat. There's a really fat cat. It's like one of the first stories is they end up getting. They also end up bringing home like all these pets, which the detective claims to hate because animals don't like him, evidently, but he's actually like spoiling the animals all the time. It's cute. It's got really good art. It's nicely printed. Kuma did a good job. I hadn't read any of the Kuma books yet. I hadn't been able to get my hands on them, and I was kind of surprised to find them in my library, just kind of there. The interesting thing, I think I mentioned this last week. The interesting thing about my library is that the manga in the teen section are under lock and key, and the manga in the adult section are not.
Hilarious.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter. I mean, part of it is the books fall apart easily, right? But I think it's also like, I don't know, are they concerned about theft? Like people can just check the books out, right? But you have to ask if you want to get the manga in the teen section taken, and that's like most of the manga, right?
I wonder if there was just having rampant kids reading everything and never checking anything out. I mean, it's a library,
Maybe.
so like,
I mean, what's wrong with that? It's the
Yeah,
library.
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Oh god, was it stupid adults complaining about can't expose kids to this dirty manga?
Oh,
They'll
who
corrupt their
knows?
minds.
Well, they can just jaunt over, you know, across the like room, and there's the, you know, the graphic
Saga.
novels. Yeah, well, there's a graphic novel section, and also like all the other manga, like for the quote unquote adults, and they have free reign. I mean, you
Can't trust those foreign Japanese.
I
The
know.
Japanese are perverts.
It was actually really funny. I was checking my books out, and I think the librarian who was checking me out may have been Japanese, because he was like, "Oh, if you like the graphic novels, you should learn Japanese." And I was like, "Yeah, I really should. I work for a manga company." He's like, "You do?" I was like, "Yeah, here's my card." Which is good, because I was kind of trying to figure out a way to give the librarians my card without being weird, so that kind of, you know, because since I work in sales, yeah, I work in sales and marketing, I do want to be in contact with like local libraries, but of course I'm going on maternity leave soon, so kind of moot at this point. But
oh, that's the thing I forgot to mention is yeah, Morgana's going on maternity leave after this week.
Yeah, this is the last time you hear from me for a while. But yeah,
I'll be missed. We shall be sad.
I know, I'm gonna miss it too, but I'm gonna be very, very tired, you guys. I am not gonna sleep for like 2 weeks minimum. But anyway, the Pet Detective Agency, very cute, very quick read. I don't know that I would like blanket recommend it to everybody, but if you like kind of dumb, fluffy shit, then it's great. Quick read. It's just it was very like much my thing. So that's what I read this week.
Very nice. What about you, Seamus? You read any manga this week?
Nope.
Okay. Darfox, anything?
No manga, but I did finally finish JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4, the anime. That was a good time. The ending of the anime, probably on purpose, was like less epic than the ending of like Part 3, which is the famous part of JoJo that's kind of iconic, everybody likes. Um, it's interestingly low key and kind of absurd. But that's the whole deal with JoJo in general, is the absurdity. And um, JoJo has this really this is common in a lot of battle manga. Uh, but JoJo does it better than anybody else. Is that they make a villain that is extremely like overpowered, to the point where like you kind of wonder how could like the heroes even win this. um and in Dragon Ball they do that because the villain can disappear and move faster than everybody else, so shoot the biggest fireball or something like that. And sometimes in Dragon Ball they have interesting rules like with Cell and stuff like that, but like in JoJo it's all about the stand powers and stuff. So you have a character who has a power that could kill anybody, and this is spoilers for JoJo Bizarre Adventure Part 4, who could kill anybody who investigates him, or if somebody tells this person investigating him any information about them, that kills him too. So he sets up this scenario where like it's impossible for like the heroes to like learn about the villain without like them dying, and somehow they find a way to like escape that, which is part of the joy or JoJo, where like the fights usually aren't decided by like who powers up more. Is usually decided by something interesting or random gimmick or something, a clever little twist. And Part 4 didn't disappoint in that, I would say. So I don't know if I like it more than Part 3. Part 3 is just so iconic, and there's just so much to Part 3 that I love so much. But Part 4 was quite good. It's worth getting through. I don't know if I'll call it a slog, but like a lot of the start of it is just these kind of like random adventures, random bizarre adventures. But the funny thing is that occasionally those random bizarre adventures become like the quote unquote main plot. And then shit gets real. So definitely enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it if you haven't got around to finishing it.
I'm so relieved to hear that Dar is not following like the popular people and being like Part 4 is the best.
I mean, I can see why somebody might say Part 4 is the best. It's a very specific vibe. It's almost like I want to. It's almost like Hannibal Lecter / I don't like like the the stories about the serial killers who are very unremarkable people. After people find out about like this person was a killer, they're like, oh, he was very nice, and like, oh yeah, he did well at his job. He just kind of like kept to himself. It's like you get that kind of archetype of a serial killer, and then you add like JoJo powers and the weird JoJo sense of humor, and just like the quirks that the mangaka has in the storytelling, and it's just a really specific tone that part has that's really really funny and really memorable. I can totally see why people would like it. um it's just a vibe. If you vibe with it, you do. If you don't, you don't. you know One thing I will say though, I really like Josuke, and they did a good job with making Josuke um part of the final fight. Like basically Josuke was the hero at the end. But like overall, when I look at Part 4, I'm really high on Josuke. I'm really high on Okuyasu. I think that's the name of the other punk character. But like they don't stand out like Jotaro stood out in Part 3. It's more like an ensemble cast. There's a Koichi, which is like the really short kid. I call him like the Krillin of the series. Koichi is almost like the standout star of Part 4 because he's like everybody's favorite, because he's kind of like the sweet boy who's always trying to do right, and he's smarter than Jotaro. Um, or sorry, than Josuke. And of course, Jotaro is literally in part 4 as well. From part 3 is in part 4, and he is like overpowered. Like, and all the villains kind of recognize how powerful he is. So he's almost like one of those characters. He's almost like One Punch Man, where like when he shows up, like the conflict ends, and so it's a matter of like figuring out how the villains are going to cut Jotaro out of the story, or vice versa. So interesting kind of setup with the characters. I don't know. You still hate it, Dakuzu?
I don't hate it. I think part 4 is good. I just don't know. It's not my favorite. My favorite is part 5.
Which I'm probably going to just roll into it and watch part 5. Because,
part 5 is a couple episodes longer than part 4. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part 4 was like 39 episodes, which is pretty long, but it's not that long. I think part 3 was longer, wasn't it? I feel like part 3 was like super long. Part 3 had like 2 seasons to it.
Part 3 is 48 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, but and that's part of like what's really memorable. Part 3 really just felt like an epic journey, like through all Egypt.
Part 5 is going to be a journey adventure again.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's got like some of my most favorite stand users and abilities and battles, because it's all about like multiple stand users teaming up to fight against multiple stand users.
Ew.
I'm glad you're back on the JoJo train.
Tyler says part 4 villain is lame, and B word being bitch, I guess. Part 3 is his favorite. No, so the part 4 villain is actually lame. That's part of his character archetype, is that he's a pathetic person, but he's also a murderer who murders women and tortures women.
Oh, cool.
So it's like it's that very kind of like disgusting, skeevy kind of person that like, like he's really scary. He's really scary because like it's almost like he's operating on like more information than everybody. And his stand specifically lets him keep away from like the heroes and stuff like that. So, I mean, I could totally see why you don't like the main villain, because you're not supposed to. It's very different from Dio. Dio is like the super charismatic, flamboyant, funny, like goofy. He's kind of like a weird supremacist. So it's not like he's all good. He's like, he thinks he's like a higher life form than people. But like Dio just has like a really like funny vibe that's really easy to like love to hate and watch. Kira, he's very much like, when you watch him, you're like, oh, this guy is like really skeevy. But that's kind of the point, is the basically the punks, the misfits of the town, hunt down and fight the serial killer of the town and save the town from the serial killer. Is basically the whole part 4 thing.
I mean, there's also a ghost telling them to do that, so
yes,
it's weird. It's bizarre.
Maybe the best thing about part 4 is that like they have the stand stuff, but then they're like, oh, you know what? Ghosts also exist, and also aliens also exist, probably, because one character claims to be an alien, and you never find out if he's an alien or not. So like they just went that extra mile to add extra, supernatural stuff for the fun of it.
Very nice, Star. Anything else?
Don't think so.
All right, well, let me talk about some stuff. I found the perfect, wacky, stupid BL comedy for Morgana. It's called Babam Babam Ban Bampaya.
God. Oh, I want it in my life.
This is a manga by Hiromasa Okujima, who is the artist behind Bad Boys Happy Home, which Morgana loves. I've talked about his manga before as well. He did a manga called New Yoku Yankees, which is about delinquents who went to different bathhouses around Tokyo. And so he's combined everything he's learned from his previous series. This series has bathhouses, it has BL, and it has delinquents. So the setup of this manga is there's a vampire working at a bathhouse. It's an old bathhouse that's been running for 60 years. And this vampire is actually Ranmaru Mori. He is a person all the way back from the Warring States period, a historical figure who worked under Oda Nobunaga. This is a real person, by the way. He was a young attendant for Nobunaga. And I think there's a lot of historical fiction around how they were lovers. Because that was a very popular thing, back in the Warring States period. You had sex with young boys. So he became a vampire when he was under Oda Nobunaga. And then he would just go around, he got experience, hanging out with all these famous people. He got hung out during the Bakumatsu period and befriended people like Sakamoto Ryoma, Hijikata Toshizo. He even hung out with Osamu Dazai, the man who did No Longer Human.
That jerk.
Also people in the 27 Club like Brian Johnson, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain. They all died young because he devoured them. And the reason he's living in this bathhouse, even though he's 450 years, is he's in love with a young boy there who is going to be the next master of this bathhouse. He's been grooming him. And he's trying to keep this boy from having sex because virgins taste the best. And they taste the best when they're 18, Morgana. So.
You know what's funny? So I am, in general, opposed to grooming, obviously. It doesn't bother me as much when it's vampires, because, nobody's as old as vampires. They're hundreds of years old, you know what I mean? But also this sounds ridiculous and amazing.
It's ridiculous and amazing, and so the vampire goes out at night and sucks the blood of criminals, even though they taste like crap. But it's all to protect his beautiful, beautiful young boy here. And then they just, I read 4 volumes of this, and they just keep throwing in more stuff to add to, the wacky relationships. The teenage boy is about to start high school. He befriends a girl that he's in love with, so the vampire has to cock block him. But then, that girl falls in love with the vampire, Mori. And then that girl has an older brother that is, a punk delinquent with blonde hair that they call him Franken, as in Frankenstein. You got Dracula, you got a vampire, and now you have Frankenstein. But that guy, he loses in a fight to the vampire, and he's like, bro, I'll follow you wherever you go. Becomes his disciple. And then on top of that, a teacher at the kid's school turns out to be a vampire hunter who actually almost killed the vampire Mori 10 years ago. And you think he's after the vampire to kill him, but it turns out he's in love with a vampire, and he saw the vampire devour somebody, and he thought it was the most amazing sight of ecstasy, and the teacher has been keeping himself a virgin, and he wants the vampire to suck his blood and kill him. But the vampire's like, listen, I just don't do it with anyone. I have to like that. So
this is just this is incredible.
And there's a group of female girls at the high school, and the leader of the gals is now in love with the teenage boy as well. And the vampire has to stop that as well. It's great.
Does the teenager who works at the bathhouse know that Mori is a vampire?
Yeah, because in the first chapter, he keeps telling him, no, I'm a vampire. But, they kind of joke about it, the parent of the teen and, the teen himself. They're like, you've told that story so many times, Mr. Mori. And so they've all heard the story. And then later on, they just confirm, yeah, we know he's a vampire. He keeps telling us. But,
That's amazing.
somehow they don't, they trust him because he's been living with them for 10 years. So like he's earned their trust. They don't question that, you know, the father of the bathhouse is like, you know, I'm sorry, Mr. Mori, I don't pay you much and I asked you to do all this work. He's like, no, don't worry about it. And the vampire's thinking in his head, I'm going to be taking your son. You know, this is a small price to pay. Work cheap for you. So it's great. It's wacky. It's BL. I just love the idea of Hiromasa Okujima combining his bathhouse manga about delinquents, all his delinquent manga he's done in the past, and then the BL delinquent manga he did, you know, Bad Boys Happy Home, all into this wacky comedy. Ba-bum, ba-bum, bum, bumpaya.
Appreciate the gag with the name.
I need it. I need it.
The Onsen
I think
song.
I posted for in our admin channel, Dar, that Hiromasa Okujima likes to play around with a lot of stuff, so he does like a parody of Kazuo Ume's when the vampire shows up in front of the gal leader's home, like hanging upside down outside the window. She screams, and it's like the Kazuo Ume's face.
Love it.
Or like all the characters are at dinner and they're playing a game of like Old Maid on the cards, and like the vampire face turns into Kaiji. Is like, oh no, if I don't win this game, I have to like profess my love of who I love, and I can't say it. They'll know that I'm in love with this boy and I want to suck his blood. And there's like Zawa Zawa all over as well. Darfox pulling up on the stream so people can see some of the shots. Good parody. Look at that shit. Look at that, Dar. It's fantastic.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Tyler in the chat says this sounds confusing. Absolutely. But it is really funny and a good time. I'm a fan of Hiromasa Okujima. His stuff is not well known and not, I bet he's like not the most popular manga artist, but he makes good manga. I'm glad he's doing this kind of stuff.
I just want to know how there is manga in the world that exists that is such a cross section of my interests and yet so difficult to find in English.
I guess they just figure it won't sell.
No, it probably won't because it's weird and I have weird taste, I guess, but this sounds incredible. I don't know.
I could see someone like 7C's actually licensing this and putting it out.
Yeah, I mean, Bad Boys Happy Home is Viz, right? It's Sublime. So I don't know if this is published by the same. Is this Libra? Do we know in Japan? Do we know what the publisher?
No, this is Akita Shoten. They're the company behind Beastars and Yomish Pedal.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of anybody's game, I think.
I don't think it's BL strong enough, even though like it's very much BL, right? The vampire has like a boner over like the young teenage boy, and he's like, I want to devour him so, but he just turned 15. I have to wait 3 more years. I've been already waiting 10 years. I gotta wait for like the best moment when he's like a virgin, until he's constantly cock blocking this teen. It's so good. It's so funny.
And you know, the best thing about like vampire, you know, you can say what you want about like, ew, gross, pedophile vampire, groomer, whatever. They're not supposed to be good guys. They're literal monsters. Like, it's fine.
I'm way more comfortable with this like BL vampire thing than I would be like there's that stupid anime or manga where like the girl is a vampire and she looks like she's 10.
Dance in the Vampire Bund.
Yep, that's the one.
The common trope of having under like
young girl, but it's okay.
Literally
she's
like
a vampire.
You're literally like a baby. Like, she's 300 years old.
And she's always naked, and they're like, well, it's fine because she's not actually. I'm like, yeah, but the body, like, yeah. No, you're right. It's definitely worse.
Yeah.
Liudana, ahaha. Iudana, ahaha.
All right. This week I also read a Josei manga, which was very good. This is called Kashi Mashi Meshi. It's a food manga, but it's a little bit more about like the drama than the food. You have 3 characters: Chiharu, She recently she quit her job. It was a job she wanted, but something happened and she ended up quitting her job and stopped going to work. Another female friend, Nakamura, she's dealing with a lot of bullshit at work because of her ex also works there, who cheated on her, and then came back to the company, so like she got removed to a different like department because it'd be too awkward. A lot of workplace misogyny shit in her storyline. And then you have Eiji, who is gay, and he's kind of in an abusive relationship with his boyfriend, who's not around. It's an interesting thing where they all end up meeting after like the suicide of one of their classmates. These three all went to an arts college. And after they meet at this funeral, they decide to like have a lot of meals together, a lot of dinner together. And so the chapters revolve around each of them and their drama, and bad things happen to them. It's kind of like shitty stuff happens. But because they meet together, the three of them, and have meals together, they feel better, and it saves them. That's kind of like the theme of the story. It's been adapted to a drama, which I did not know about. I guess it happened this year.
Art is gorgeous.
Oh, this is by Mari Okazaki.
Ah,
Have you heard of her?
I think I recognize that name, yes.
There's another Mari Okazaki who was the writer for O Maidens in Your Savage Season, but they're different people.
That's it. Let me see.
They're different people, Morgana. The one who did O Maidens in Your Savage Season is an anime writer, and this Mari Okazaki is a manga artist.
Okay, no, I have heard of this one. So, one of her works was translated by Tokyo Pop Supply or Supply.
There's a manga actually on our reading list. Will I Be Single Forever? Or Will I Stay Single Forever? We might do that as a one-shot. Put out by Viz. But yeah, like the food in here is good. It's kind of a little bit of a depressing read because like just so much bad shit happens to these characters. I feel bad for them. But I do like, especially Nakamura, who ends up working at like her job and she's constantly being put down by like coworkers. And the fact that she gets sent off to a different department just because her ex came back. And the ex is like so fucking skeevy, like fuck that guy.
This sounds like what happened at DC Comics a few years back.
Mm-hmm. The big mystery is about Chiharu and why she ended up quitting her job. But that's been like kind of a slow burn. It's been focusing more on Nakamura at her job, and then Eiji dealing with kind of an abusive boyfriend. So it's good. I like it. I like the food stuff that they include. I'm gonna get some recipes from this manga. I want to try them out. They have a way of making dumplings or gyoza that you don't like wrap them, which I think is wild. I want to try this. Apparently, if you don't like actually like take the time to like wrap the gyoza and like make them into like that little dumpling form and just lay them out flat on a hot plate, you'll still get like a crispy like gyoza skin, but the inside will be a little bit more like, I don't know, like less cooked or like more fresh vegetable flavor. It sounds good. And it's faster to make.
You gonna do another cooking video for us?
I don't. Maybe if Darfox asks me, we'll see.
Darfox asks you.
But I do. I really like this manga, and I'm about 3 volumes into this, and there's a couple more, so I'm gonna keep reading this. Kashimashi Mish by Mari Okazaki. Okay, I have one more manga I want to talk about. The other two were kind of fit into the Pride and panels for Pride Month, but this is a shonen battle manga. The thing about this is this manga is called Versus. But the writer on this is One, the creator of One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100.
Definitely not his art, though.
No, the art is done by Kyotaro Azuma. And there's someone else named Boss here. I think they came up with the concept. They're the concept creator. And then they got One to do the script. And Kyotaro Azuma to draw it. The basic premise is... Oh yeah, Darfox pulled up the first chapter. It's a world where heroes have to fight against these demon lords. And there's a great demon lord with 47 demon lords under him. And they've brought up 47 heroes to take them out. Our hero is here on the very left with a sword. But, this is One. So things are not going to go well. In this first chapter, almost all the heroes die. They get completely killed. Except for, this one hero here. And even he loses immediately against the Demon Lord. And his friend with the blue hair here saves him and says, we're going to try this last attempt. I'm going to use something called a summoning spell. So I'm thinking, oh shit, it's going to be like Isekai. They're going to summon a hero. They summon these Space Marine warriors. And they're like, oh my god, we're going to be saved. These Space Marine warriors are going to help us defeat the Demon Lord. And the Space Marines immediately say, our world is on the brink of destruction because of AI robot enemies. Please save us. So the title of this series is called Versus because it's all about all these worlds that summon and kind of mix together, and they need help defeating all their big bads from each other. And they come up with this idea. Let's pit all our bad guys against each other. So the demon lords will end up fighting the AI robots instead. And that will lead to our human survival. Because the human warriors, they're no match. Even against enemies of another universe. It's pretty interesting. It is serialized in Shonen Sirius by Kodansha. And there hasn't been that much out. But I like the idea. It sounds like a very One idea.
Definitely.
Of just pit the bad guys against each other. That's the only way we'll survive. And there's a weird pig creature. I was like, that's a One character if I've ever seen one. And so it's kind of like a wacky, world-breaking kind of setup. I'm interested to see how everything will play out. It's really funny when the human survivors gather for a big meeting. All the human survivors start arguing about why their big bad is the worst. It's much stronger than others. We got Titans, man. Fuck your Titans. We got aliens. Aliens are the worst. No, we have to deal with the Earth people. We have to deal with the tree people. It's just wacky and funny. It's some good One dialogue comedy. So I'm gonna keep an eye on this series. Versus. Okay, and that will be my what you've been reading. So before we move along to our main segment, let's talk about what we're doing next week. So Morgana, you are going on maternity leave.
Bye, y'all. I got stuff to do.
Yes. Seamus will also not be here next week. He will be busy seeing CM Punk and an AEW show.
No. Seeing CM Punk. AEW doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're merely the vessel by which his return is enabled.
Okay.
Are you going to watch the whole show, or are you just going to show up at the end for the main event?
Well, I just want to see him come out. So I'm assuming that's going to happen at the start. So after that, I don't know. If I'm bored, I might just leave.
Wyatt might go.
No, he is going.
He said he's going, but he's a grown ass man. He can find his own way.
this man who doesn't really know anything about wrestling, but he's gonna go to hang out with Sheamus. Sheamus is gonna like, hey, why? Thanks for stopping by. I'm dipping, okay? Because this is boring.
He's got to get the full Sheamus experience, like.
Yeah, so Sheamus will be out next week. It will just be me and Darfox. And Dar, for Pride and Panels, we're going to do a Manga in Motion. We're going to watch something.
Oh, yeah. What are we watching?
We are watching What Did You Eat Yesterday, the live-action drama.
What? That's available?
It is not available without a VPN, but if you have the Japanese Netflix, it's on there, so...
Good thing I have a Japanese friend.
Yes. So we're going to watch What Did You Eat Yesterday. I finished this with my wife. She loved it. Darfox and I will be watching, I think it's 12 episodes or 11 episodes for the first season. They're going to do a second season this year in October. But we'll just watch the first season stuff.
I think we have we read the first 2 volumes of What Did We Eat Yesterday?
Either one. Definitely one. Yeah.
Definitely one, but I assume these 12 episodes are going to go further in whatever content that I haven't seen.
Yes, but I'm sure you'll recognize some things that you've already seen because it's pretty faithful.
Cool. Fun.
Yeah, so for next week, we'll be watching the drama of What Did You Eat Yesterday? Stay tuned for that. Okay, we're going to take a break and we're going to say bye to Sheamus because Sheamus is going to bow out of the main segment of this podcast. So,
speaking of dipping,
the Sheamus experience. All right, Sheamus. We'll see you in 2 weeks then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. And we're also going to go on break before our main segment of Is Love the Answer by Uta Isaki. Darfox will put the stream down and we'll take a break. And when we, after that, we'll be right back. Okay, we are back, everybody. And we are doing our main segment. The first of our Pride and Panels for this month. We're going to talk about Is Love the Answer, a manga by Uta Isaki. So the Japanese title for this was Kimi no Sekai ni Koi wa Nai. It was originally published in Japan in 2020. Came out in Hatsukiss magazine. English translation copyright 2022. Translation by Rose Paget. Lettering Jennifer Scarupa. Editing Tiff Joshua and TJ Ferrantini. And US Publishing Edition cover design by Abigail Blackman. Let me go ahead and read the copy here on Kodansha. A poignant coming-of-age story about a young woman coming into her own as she discovers her identity as aromantic asexual. A complete story in a single volume from the creator of Minekun is Asexual. When it comes to love, high schooler Chika wonders if she might be an alien. She's never fallen for or even had a crush on anyone, and she had no desire for physical intimacy. Her friends tell her that she just hasn't met the one yet, but Chika has doubts. It's only when Chika enters college and meets peers like herself that she realizes there's a word for what she feels inside. Asexual. And she's not the only one. After years of wondering if love was the answer, Chika realizes that the answer she sought out may not exist at all, and that's perfectly normal. Alright, so we have read works by Uta Isaki on this podcast. We did the it was a trio doujinshi that they put out from Iridori. I totally forget what those titles are. I should have written them down before we started.
One of them was it Mermaid's Tear?
Yes. Mermaid in the Bottle is what it was.
Oh, okay.
and then Leaper.
Oh yeah, I liked Leaper.
The thing is, I think we all really enjoyed the artwork by Uta Isaki. And we did like those doujinshi. We also read their series Generation Witch. We did not like that. But I was looking forward to reading Is Love the Answer, which is about the main character being asexual. And this is a good manga. I like it. It feels a little bit like Asexual 101.
Yeah. Which I kind of suspect is the reason Seamus dipped.
Yeah.
I felt similarly. I don't dislike it, but I felt the same way.
It's got some decent art, but we've seen better art from Uta Isaki in the doujinshi. And if it had some more of that in here, I think Seamus would have stuck around, because Seamus doesn't really care about like reading, beginner stories about like sexual minorities. But he does really like Shimanami Tasugare. Wait, what is the English title of that?
Our Dreams at Dusk.
Yes. But that one has the most gorgeous artwork.
I think that one also has, in my opinion, it has gorgeous artwork, but the artwork and the storytelling are a little more lockstep. Where in this one, it's a little bit more traditional in just the composition of the panels, and there are moments in the story where the main character is just reading about themselves and thinking about themselves, and we just see them on the bed with text bubbles and word boxes as they are learning, which isn't a necessarily unvalid way to do it, but I think my only criticism of this book that I would give is that it didn't quite pull off marrying the story of a young woman in college making friends and maybe making life partners, with the educational aspect as like, do you know what asexuality is? Do you think maybe you could be asexual? Does this fill in some dots? Does this connect some dots for you in your whole life that you may not have thought about? These two aspects, the educational aspect and the story aspect, didn't gel together in a way that I think if it did, I would just feel kind of over the moon about this book. Whereas I just kind of feel like it was a really good book, and it might be a really, really important book for some people. But it just kind of isn't for me by by definition. I think in the afterward, what did the author say? Like, as long as they wanted somebody to take something away from this, and that's why they wrote the book, right? And because it was kind of like beginner 101, this kind of felt like the people that could take something away from it were either somebody who never heard of asexuality or somebody who is discovering their own potential asexuality. And I'm like, I'm nowhere near in that kind of spectrum. I'm more like I'm outside of it. So it's like it really felt like it really wasn't for me. So any criticism I give the book, I give it with a huge caveat of like, it kind of doesn't matter what I say. I'm just purely speaking as somebody as I read the book, and this is just what I thought. But I very clearly recognize that like this could be actually a very important book for a specific person, or a specific age or upbringing, for this narrative to introduce him into this world of sexual minorities and whatever.
Yeah, I think, the parts that I find strongest in this story are the parts where Chika is interacting with her new friends.
Yes.
Definitely her, her gay friend and her otaku friend. Everybody has these friends. I have these friends, right? Like, like and building a relationship with them and coming to terms with her own identity and learning about their identities, and even the like the straight friends who like hop into bed together, even like learning about them. She had a very interesting approach to their issue. And in some ways, Chica as a character, I'm kind of like, how can you be so naive, right? Like, there's not about asexuality, because I do think of the sexualities, it is the one that is the least talked about, and the least understood
and represented.
Yeah, and in fact, I talk about myself as being bisexual, and that's broadly true. But actually, I'm technically demisexual. I don't have sexual attraction to somebody until I make a close emotional bond with them. And interestingly enough, despite the fact that I'm married to a man, I find it's much easier to be attracted to women. And I think that has to do with the fact that women are taught to bond emotionally faster than like women and men between each other. So I had, I was thinking about all these things as I was reading this. But so in that sense, like seeing a group of queer young people trying to figure themselves out, trying to find their identity, and through a story, that is definitely much more interesting to me than the like Ace 101 stuff. I think that stuff is valuable, and like Dar was saying, it's good for somebody who really is starting from like zero, right? But I wish there was a way that it was kind of incorporated in a little bit more, I don't want to say naturally, but like this is kind of what it reminds me of the end of Boys Run the Riot, where it kind of all fell apart because suddenly it was like, and we're all different. Isn't that great? So I was like, okay, this is a little too basic in some ways. And I don't want to, I think it's a nice book. It's a nice story. There's nothing wrong with it. But like Dar, even though I am kind of part of this community, it's not for me either. It's kind of like my brother's husband too, in that way. It's kind of like, gay 101, which is even more ridiculous because if you don't know any gay people at this point in time, you must be living under a rock. I don't know. Like, but asexuality is very, very poorly represented. And so I don't want to completely talk down on this because I do think it's important that it exists. But yeah, it's definitely for not me in particular.
I will say I really liked how Uta Isaki focuses on the spectrum. How there are different people who are ace and they fit in different parts, and like it's not just like one, if you're asexual, you're just this. Like everyone is different. And that's important because that's true. It's very true.
Yeah, and also even with the gay friend, and he talks about sometimes how he's attracted to women characters. And attraction doesn't necessarily have to be a sexual attraction or romantic attraction, but there's an acknowledgement there that like even if you're pretty firm on what your sexuality is, it's not a single stable thing. People are people, and to some degree we all kind of experience differences in attraction throughout our lives, and that's normal and that's fine, and things can change. We are not hopefully we are not stagnant individuals, right? We're all growing and changing, and the people we interact with and the people we form relationships with are part of that too.
I mean, Chica even says it at the end of this book, where they're like, yeah, I'm asexual, but I'm also Chica. It's like, yes, that's super important to say, but also you had to say it in this manga. Gotta say it out loud here on the page.
Yeah.
Which is important, but also kind of it takes it more into the 101 territory. It's not a bad thing, everybody. It's not bad at all.
I have a page pulled up that if you're watching the stream, you could see. If you listen to the podcast, we will describe what's happening. this is one of the many moments in the story when Chica is talking about kind of like when she struggled with the idea of normalcy, and she basically admits that all her life she dressed and acted in a way to not kind of like step out of line or to not draw attention to herself. And I hate to make fun, but there's something almost like meme worthy about her. Like she so like she's asking for a Wii, or actually she's being offered like a Wii, and it's like, well, what kind of games do you want for a Wii? And she's just shook at the idea that she has to pick a game, and she's like, oh, whatever everyone else has, I guess. Which is sad. But I found that panel kind of funny. Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about her kind of being a naive. Like, I sometimes have a hard time with real life people, but also characters who have such, this is gonna sound really mean, weak personalities. Like they don't have a strong person. They don't have a lot of things. I am the kind of person who it's very obvious what I like. I make no secret about the things I like. I mean, Dakazu knew immediately that I wanted to read that stupid vampire BL manga. Like, you know, I have a really, really hard time with people who have no known interests or, passions or things. It's very hard for me to get along with somebody like that. And it's kind of painful to read about somebody like that. And I realize that this is probably partially kind of an allegory for her, like, finding herself. Like, she didn't have something there. She's kind of trying to figure out her identity. And she does have a passion. She wants to find out about romance, but it's kind of an obsession because she can't feel that attraction, right? So like it's almost like Moby Dick shit. Like she's after her white whale, which is romance, and she's yelling at the sea, being like, "I will take you." Which, I could get behind that, but and she does get, as she becomes more invested in researching and figuring this out, she does have a stronger character. She does start to, like, discover things she enjoys and become a little bit less of what everybody else expects her to be. But at the beginning, it's like, oh my god, girl, like, you don't got to do what anybody says. And also that boyfriend of yours, he sucked.
Oh, the guy, yeah.
Interesting though, that, and I think more manga are doing this, but this is the first one I can think of that I noticed. There's a content warning in the very beginning, and
yes,
and a website to seek hotlines for help in case you've been victims or have witnessed sexual violence. And to be clear, what happens in the beginning of the book is relatively tame. I'm not saying that it's not dramatic, but I was like, oh damn, what am I getting into? I thought it was just going to be a lot of sexual violence.
I had the same thought.
There isn't a lot of sexual violence in the book at all. It's just in the very beginning, she had a really bad experience with a boyfriend who was basically pushy really early on. He wanted sex like first, second date or something like that. And that's kind of it. But I do give them props, the localization team and the people who worked on the book, putting that content warning very visible basically at the top of the content, or the table of contents is where it was. I think that's a good move, because it doesn't really get in the way of anything, but it's also right up front.
Yes, I was very impressed. I actually told my husband, I was reading it, like, my husband was I was like, oh my god, they have a sexual assault content warning, like, right here. And it's like, so many manga have assault situations with assault, and in many of them it's fiction. This is fiction, but this is a little bit more real world, and something that, I hate to tell you all this, but probably a lot of teenage girls have had to deal with, and probably a lot of them have had to deal with worse than what Chica went through. So I think it was very responsible of them to immediately be like, you need to know that this might not be safe for you.
And this book is technically or potentially written for them. So
right.
it was smart. Good job.
Absolutely. Like Dar, when I read that at the beginning, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I was too. I was like, oh god.
Then afterwards, I was like, that thing should be in way more manga. There's way worse happening
Yes.
with zero fucking warning. It's like there's nice and good things about this manga. I think Dar said it at the beginning, it doesn't quite get up there as like a great manga. It's a good manga. Is it just because it needs to be like explaining everything, all the educational stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my feeling is like for the Ace 101, I wish it was more of a nonfiction autobio thing, like The Bride Was a Boy, where you have a character, you have the author who is trans and is talking about their their experience and giving context that way and providing educational notes in and among, in between chapters and things like that, where you kind of expect to have the educational notes in something that's nonfiction, right? Whereas this is a fictional story and also kind of a textbook in some ways. And I kind of wish it had just the story. And I'm not saying that Isaki needs to like write an autobio comic about asexuality necessarily, because again, identity is complicated and sometimes there is no linear like path. Maybe this is what their experience was like, in some ways. Maybe it is in some contexts autobiographical. It's just like in the frame of fiction and the lack of like a first person narrator, it feels like my hand is being held through a story, and that's harder for me than if my hand was being held through somebody's personal experience where I feel like they should be guiding me, right?
Yeah. Like, at the end of this book, they get into the senpai, Ume-chan, and his backstory, and as soon as it started, I was like, I know exactly where this is going to go. Because you need to have a contrasting experience in the past, right? Compared to what Chico went through. And so, like, it's his journey and, like, what he experienced was, like, very negative, and he made a lot of mistakes. And it was kind of weird to put them together at the end.
Well, in quotes.
Like, yeah, like...
They're moving forward, they have an expectation to be, like, available for each other, but maybe not even partners.
Yeah, it is a kind of partnership, but it is not, I mean, it's not romantic. Chika was very adamant that she is aromantic, asexual, right? Although I think it was implied that Ume-chan senpai was alloromantic and asexual, like he was interested in romance. But
no, he has they said he has a libido, but is sex repulsed.
Right. Somebody else was alloromantic and asexual, I think. But anyway,
was it the professor?
I don't remember. No, although she was very interesting too. So the professor is married, but it's a marriage of convenience basically for her and this friend of hers. And neither of them are in love with each other. But there are definitely benefits to being married to someone. And it's kind of not fair that people who don't have an interest in marriage are subject to those same rules, right? Like they should also be able to have people, because just because you're not in a romantic relationship doesn't mean you don't have people you care about and who care about you, right? Yeah. So you should still have other people who can come and take care of you if you need it, right? Like in their case, one of them was in the hospital and nobody could visit because they weren't family, right? And then they decided to get married because it was convenient.
Japanese family registry stuff is fucking bullshit and antiquated, and it is a fucking mess.
But it's like that here too in the US. You can't like they don't let people other than family often see people in the hospital. I mean, not like visitors if you're like in recovery or whatever, fine. But like if if I got into a car accident or something, yeah, they'd let my husband in, but they wouldn't let my best friend. You know what I mean? And that it's not like I don't have a relationship with my best friend. It's not like they don't care. Like it's like a whole. I understand they've got to limit it, but if I didn't have a partner, what would we do? Like who would be there for me, right? People. I realize there's protocols and procedures, and you have to do things a certain way, but it's really shitty that we have to justify caring for people with a government contract.
Yep.
I don't know that I necessarily would have gone through with getting married legally if it wasn't going to make mine and my husband's life easier. Like it doesn't. Our relationship hasn't changed in many ways since we got married. But it's more convenient for our finances. It's more convenient for our healthcare stuff. It's more convenient because we were planning on having children. It sucks. It sucks that it sucks that we have to prove to any other entity that we care about each other.
Oh yeah. I just got married a couple months ago.
Wait, what?
In the eyes of Japan, because I never filled out the paperwork. I was single until a couple months ago. My wife isn't on the family registry in Japan until I did all the paperwork.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
He's on the family tree now.
And yet, how long have you been married in the States?
I got married in 2008.
Yeah, that's what, 14 years?
Yep.
Almost, yeah.
If something happened to me, then like legally, because I got married in the U.S., so I don't know if like legally things would be able to transfer over to my wife, because at least in Japan, like I'm not married. They would have been able to argue against that. It's kind of messed up.
Yo. And it makes the fight for like gay marriage and stuff like that way more poignant, right?
If I'm not mistaken, I know that a lot of gay couples in Japan up to this point have had situations where one partner adopts the other so that they can be family members.
That's 100% what they have to do. You become their kid. You become legal guardian and child. Because that is the only way.
That's the best. That's the best part of bureaucracy, when it's so fucking up his own ass. When the loopholes are so cockamamie that like anybody with half a brain will look at it and be like, "This is ludicrous." Well, that's the rules. The rules, they can't get married, but they can adopt each other.
We read in that cheese. What was the manga we just talked about, Morgana?
The Bride Was a Boy.
Yeah, The Bride Was a Boy. How like after they had their I forget what the name of the procedure is.
I think they call it sex change and
gender affirming.
Yeah, gender affirming procedure. Surgery. Because you cannot. This is really fucking stupid in Japan, but you cannot be married to somebody unless they have the genitalia that's supposed to match the sex. It's really fucking stupid.
And like invasive.
Yeah, and then once you do that on your family registry, it transfers you over, because Japanese family registry is split by the sex, and so it's like eldest son, eldest daughter. Guess what? If your eldest son has gender affirmation surgery, they become eldest daughter. Even though there's already another fucking eldest daughter. There's two eldest daughters. It's so stupid. Just shaking my head.
Wow, I'll shake it for you.
Thank you, sir. It's just Morgan, I also wonder, like, some of the stuff you felt about the main character here in Is Love the Answer? Maybe the conformity and being passive, like maybe that's more of a Japanese cultural thing as well.
Yeah, I did have that thought. I know that part of the taboo against homosexuality or any kind of sexual or gender minority, and I kind of use minority in quotes because I'm not sure it's that minor, but I know that in Japan it has more to do with lack of conforming than it has to do with any moral anything. Here in the States, there's a lot of Bible thumping shit, and it's against God, and it's against nature, and all this stuff that's ridiculous. And I know in Japan, and probably a lot of, I would imagine a lot of East Asian countries, it has to do more with not conforming to the norm.
Yes, that word is brought up a lot in this book, like normal. Gotta be normal.
Yes.
And a lot of characters questioning, like, what does that even mean? What does normal mean? And not liking that word. And I think that's a good point to make. What's normal for someone else may not be normal for someone else. I think I said that wrong.
But I know what you mean. There is no normal. There's no one correct way. There's no, like, I get this, I think about this a lot when people are talking about, like, the right way to, like, you get a career and you have a family and you do this and you do that. And it's like, there is no one single path in life. There's no one right answer. There's no one way to be. And that applies to everything. And it definitely applies to your identity. There's no one, two gay people, two bisexual people, two asexual people. They're not the same. They have their own complexities that affect and inform their identity and also the rest of their lives, right? We are more than the one aspect of ourselves, the gender or the sexuality.
I did like at the end when Ume-chan senpai was going to go live out by himself, and the professor is like, well, that's good. It's like, and like, she's like, no, it's not. And professor is like, well, is that because you are making the decision?
Right, because in that case, Chika is deciding what's normal or good.
Mm-hmm. I definitely see what Utai Iseki is trying to do in this book with the story and the characters and try to present everything, and I think that's good.
I do think that's succeed. Good. I think they succeed in most of that. I think the book is well crafted overall, I would say. And we've compared it to My Brother's Husband, which does share a little bit of that DNA of like 101. But I will put this over My Brother's Husband in the sense that, like, it's hard for me to see any gay person reading My Brother's Husband and being like, Eureka, aha, I get it. But I might see like an asexual person reading this and being like, okay, I think I can relate to some of this. So I guess what I'm saying is My Brother's Husband almost exclusively feels like for the outsider, whereas this doesn't really feel it could help an outsider, but it more feels like for somebody who might be struggling with these ideas or feelings, and this book might give them a vocabulary and a frame of reference. So I would I'll put it over for that.
Yeah, and it's it's important to note My Brother's Husband is very, very well received by manga and comics people in general. And that's good, right? I think that's generally a good thing. And I would hope that this would also be well received as something that is valuable, a valuable piece of LGBTQ literature and just an important work for a group of people who are historically extremely underrepresented.
I really like Chika's friends, the gay guy and also the otaku.
I do too.
How they come back like the next day after that first awkward lunch and they apologize and become better friends. Even like the other girl who's telling Chika, you gotta kiss somebody, find out if you like them. or like the kind of shitty guy.
That fuckboy.
Yeah, the fuckboy character. I appreciate how they like the story played out and like working out the relationship and having the debate and everything.
I am a little bit astounded by how much grace they gave that asshole, though.
Yes.
Like, oh, I don't think it's cheating if I have sex with somebody as long as there are no feelings. And I'm like, okay, you realize this is like a niche opinion, right? Like, that's not how everybody feels.
That might be the most Japanese thing in the book, in my opinion, just because like nowadays we cannot debate like assholes. Like we know that they won't debate in like
in good faith.
Good faith, thank you. My brain. So it's just like in a if I would ever find myself in that situation, and then he starts like talking about how like kissing isn't cheating, my first thing would be like, okay, but like, what's the relationship to you? Like, are you like, are you, are you in open relationships? Like, what's your whole deal? Are you okay with your girlfriend kissing and having sex? Like that would be like the first and only thing I would ask them. And after that, I would say, fuck off. This conversation's over.
Right.
Because that's pretty like silly in my opinion. Outside of open relationships, which is a whole other thing. And I'm not trying to dismiss any of that. But that's not what this guy was going for, I don't think.
But also, if you are polyamorous, that is something you should discuss with your partners before getting involved.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of responsibility that goes with being in an open relationship that I think maybe some people who claim to be polyamorous don't fully appreciate.
There are people make mistakes, and there are also assholes from all walks of life.
Yes.
If in quote unquote sexual minorities can be an assholes. Morgana, you could probably rant for hours about like bisexual discrimination amongst like gay communities.
Oh yeah.
Like just
and,
because yes.
I was gonna say sorry, and asexual discrimination. There are definitely people because to a degree the LGBTQ community, and this is not entirely their fault, as a defense mechanism has been very over sexualized to kind of push back against the puritanical, especially here in the United States, the puritanical kind of anti-gay stuff that they kind of go overboard, right? And that does alienate a lot of people who are not who do consider them who do consider themselves queer, but are not sexual people, right? Not overly sexual or interested in presenting themselves that way. So it can be very alienating, and it's being bisexual is like,
you're
pick one
or some shit,
or biromantic or whatever you want to call me. But no, it's not there are shitty people everywhere. Just because somebody's queer or somebody's a person of color or somebody is I don't know, none. No, all of these people could be assholes, like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, which is, and this is super off topic, but I live in Florida, and whenever like somebody tries to like gotcha like black people as a race, I've literally had these conversations where they're like, well, look, these people lied, and like they're basically pointing a finger at like some black people who lied about something.
Yes, these individuals did.
Yeah, and trying to correlate that to like basically anything any black person has ever said ever, specifically about hot button issues like police brutality and stuff like that. It's a massive just like brain fog that people have. They have no idea, or they just don't know how to act. They don't understand that like an individual's mistake and or personality fault does not condemn like thousands or millions of people. that might have the same race or, sexuality or whatever. I don't even know how we got on this tip.
I was looking at Twitter yesterday, and somebody did something really good, and a reply to that was like, "You are an example of black excellence," and I was like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?"
Yeah, I mean, so there's in the black community, there's the talk of black excellence, people, black folks who are doing great things. Great, I love it. Good,
and it isn't
gas yourselves
recognized.
up.
Yeah, like the thing is that isn't like black excellence isn't actually recognized in like the typical forums that excellence would be recognized, like in an award show or stuff like that.
That said,
yeah,
I came across my memories on Facebook recently where I shared something because it was the height of the Black Lives Matter protests, and there was a lot of discussion about like deserving black people who didn't deserve to be shot by police, and a lot of like discussion about how like not all black people are thugs, not all black people are, and I'm like, rewind. Thugs also don't deserve to get shot by police. Like, I'm sorry, like there is no qualifier here. Black Lives Matter, bar none, period. It doesn't matter, like, same thing. Like, it's like people are still people, even if they are doing bad things also. Like, I don't know. It's complicated.
Well,
sorry, I was gonna say, also, if they're not, like, incredible scholars or quote unquote black excellence, even if they're not doing amazing things for their community, they still don't deserve to be shot by the cops.
Yeah, it's like when the police release bad information about some like a black person who got shot, as if that's supposed to like make it even Stevens, the fact that they shot him. It's like, oh well, they stole some cigarettes earlier that day, punishable by death, I suppose.
Yeah, like
what, fucking Christ.
Right. Like, what kind of backwards ass country we live in that like we execute people for minor misdemeanors like theft?
There are, again, I don't even remember why I took us down this road, but there are like injustices and misconceptions about very basic like human conditions, stuff that we should understand because we are human, but like the resistance to like understanding and see it is very frustrating. And
you can't exploit people if you understand, Dar.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking hell.
Exploit, oppress.
Mm-hmm. Take advantage.
Farm for children.
It's been a while since we got like a deep Dagazu depression sigh.
It's been a while since we went on a rant like this.
Yeah, we're not like overtly political on this podcast, even though we don't hide kind of like our political leanings. But unless it's about the manga, we usually don't talk about politics directly. But it just happened this time because whatever.
Because fuck it, we know where we stand.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, this is completely and entirely off topic for everything, but I'm distracted, Dar, by how good your hair looks.
Well, my hair?
It's still looking good, yep.
Oh, well, thank you. Like, I was... There's something about the camera. The camera makes it look better because I watched it today.
Is it the lighting?
It might be the lighting, but like... I mean, the lighting in my bathroom is better.
Beautiful curls.
There's something about the lighting and the camera that kind of gives it a specific definition now with the conditioner. And yeah, this is my ponytail. But
I've been thinking it this whole time, and I just it's so distracting. I feel like we need to lighten it up, and it was time to mention that the conditioner's still doing good things for you.
Yes. My wife walked by him. Is it Hello? Brown? Is it light?
I'm sorry, Doctor. You cut out for me.
You dipped out, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Did you ask what color my hair is?
Yeah, my wife walked by and was like, "Darfox's hair. What color is that?"
I'm not the person to ask about color, but I've always said brown.
Light, yeah, like a light brown.
Must be the lighting. Also, she just kind of walked by. But yeah, getting back to the manga, is there anything else we want to mention before we kind of start wrapping up?
The professor character, the way she's introduced, it almost seems like she was gonna be. Maybe this is just my misconceptions, but she was gonna be like the object of potential, not I don't know, desire or romance, but like it felt like it was gonna be something between her and
Chika?
Chica, yeah. At least I got that impression. But then, like, almost immediately afterwards, the senpai like slams down whatever he was carrying and kind of interrupts it, and I was like, okay, that's the one. Yeah. It still fell into like a couple of these like obvious tropes.
Yeah, trying to do kind of like the typical manga stuff, setting up like the story, the human relationships. You know, Chika wanting to like move in is kind of. I kind of glance. I'm also distracted because Starbucks keeps putting pizza up to the camera. But what I was trying to say was when Chika suddenly like decides I'm gonna move in with a professor in that share house, that seemed a little forced.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was like, put on your manga helmet. We're gonna ignore reality. And just like, like, is that even like ethical for a professor to like let a student move into the house that they own? You know what I mean? Like, that's complicated, right? I don't know if that would be allowed. Yeah, there were a few like very, also just like, you have a whole house full of ace people, really? Like, again, this is a sexuality that is not super talked about, that is not super, I wouldn't say it's uncommon, but like I think even people who are asexual may not really realize it because it just means you're not engaging in romance or sex. That doesn't necessarily make, I think for a lot of people it doesn't make a difference, right? Like, it doesn't bother them. So to find a household that has at least 3 ace people living in it, like, that happen to find each other, that happen to, like, it's just very manga magic.
Maybe that's the parts where we see the 101 taking over.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's impossible, right? But like, it's not like Chika sought out like-minded people. She kind of fell into them, right? Like, this professor was somebody she respected before, and oh, look, they happen to also be ace. Kind of a little too easy.
I guess she was starting to do that at the end when she ran into her old high school friend. And then she's doing Twitter and doing LGBTQ plus gatherings and stuff like that. That was just kind of thrown in there very rapidly.
Yeah, and that's something I think would have been good to have more of this relationship stuff like she has with her other friends, where she kind of learns about herself and other people like at the same time, and grows, right?
There's one question I should ask is, do either of you think this thing got canceled early? Because with serialized manga, that's always a possibility. Like, I don't know if it was always supposed to be just 6 chapters, and like maybe like it just.
Maybe. I also just don't know where else it would go. Like, I don't feel like it was set up for the long haul, really. But maybe the author was writing it feeling like they knew they weren't gonna go very far with it. I don't know, like, I have a hard time being able to tell, because there was so much, there wasn't a whole lot of character development of like the cast. It was really just Chika like figuring things out. So I don't know. I have a hard time knowing, like, I was thinking like it's probably good that it's 1 volume. Kind of succinct and straightforward. I don't know how that would be extended longer than this. I don't really know what the story would become if it's not just Chika reading textbooks.
Right. I don't know. I always kind of assumed that with manga, they're trying to set up something that's serialized, and they want something that's gonna keep going if it's popular, right? So kind of the way that it suddenly pivots from doing the relationship debate right into Ume's backstory, and that's just kind of the end of the series after that, makes me think like, well, this thing maybe, but it's like, what is this, 200 pages? So I don't know. What do you think, Dar? Stop eating your pizza and give us an answer.
I take a swig of the delicious Sprite.
We have not been paid by Sprite, by the way. This is not product placement, but if Sprite wants to throw a few bucks
That
our
is
way,
more than a swig.
Yeah, I chugged it out. Well, about half the can. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about any potential, like if they're trying to make it for the long haul. But I do see your point where they maybe finally discovered that they wouldn't get a run or a serialization, so they had to insert one of the main characters' backstories really quick. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have no real opinion about it. It could go either way. I don't know what they could have done afterwards, but I mean, it have a cast of characters that she has her friends. Stuff could have happened with them, and she could have kept on learning.
Because it's not called Final Chapter, it's just called Chapter 6, and then that's the end. And I think that's telling.
Well, it says the end at the end, in the final page. It's not left to be continued or anything.
I mean, they have no choice about that, though, because that's all they got. That's the way I look at it. I don't know.
So I guess I just, as we wind down, I want to say I do think this is worth reading, especially if you don't know a whole lot about asexuality or are curious about the branches of asexuality, like gray sexuality and demisexuality, and the differences between being asexual or aromantic and allosexual, alloromantic. I do think that if in general you are a reader of LGBTQ manga, obviously it's worth reading for just knowing that it exists. I don't think. I mean, Dar said it already. I think if you're somebody who is trying to figure things out, this will probably speak to you more than if you're somebody who is kind of set in your identity, whether that is ace or not. But I do think it's valuable, right? I do think it's a valuable thing to exist, and I'm glad that it exists in English, and I'm glad that there's more queer content in English in general, and genuine queer content, not... I mean, BL and Yuri have been available in English for a long time. That's not representation by any stretch of the imagination, mostly not representation. So I'm glad this kind of stuff exists. And I want there to be more of it. So I don't, the criticisms that we make, I don't want it to damn this book, right? I don't want it to jeopardize its existence in English.
Yes, I 100% agree. I whatever criticisms it's just I feel us academically talking about the manga and the creation of a work, but the spirit of the manga, and I will say the quality of the manga is very high and high enough that I do recommend it, especially if we get into caveats and who could this be for. I think it's a good book.
I thought this was better than Minakun is asexual. Because I think back to that, and The story of that was Minekun was asexual, and then there was a girl who's like, I like you, let's just date. That already kind of turned me off on that. So, in comparison, I like the trajectory of this book with Chico's story. And I don't have to talk back too much. I feel like you guys are more negative on this than I was. I already said at the beginning, this is a good manga.
Not negative, but critical.
Yes.
That's fair. Very
I
fair.
say that as I move my glasses up.
We all adjust our glasses. All right, then. That's going to end our episode on Is Love the Answer by Uta Isaki. Dar, before we sign off, we need the Manga Mac bump.
Oh, you told me, but I totally forgot.
I should have brought it up at the beginning. It's fine.
Yeah, the Manga Mac bump, because I just ate a pizza. Go get a pizza that's not chain pizza. Some mom and pop pizza. And post about it. Let's do that.
Keep it simple. All right, let's go ahead and end the episode. So next week we'll be doing Manga in Motion on the live action drama of What Did You Eat Yesterday? Stay tuned for that. I want to thank Darfox, Morgana, and Seamus for being on this episode. And Morgana, best of luck to you for your maternity leave.
Thanks, guys. I'll miss you all.
We will miss you too.
Fight.
Yep.
If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe to us, review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you can find us. We could use some new reviews. Check out our website, mangamachinations.com. Our Tumblr is mangamachinations.tumblr.com. Send us emails, mangamachinations@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, @MangaMacPodcast. That's Manga MAC Podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out our live streams, youtube.com/MangaMacTV. Join our Discord server. Just head over to discord.me/MangaMac. Buy us a coffee to support us. ko-fi.com/MangaMacTV. And you can follow my Twitter @Dakazu, follow Darfox @Darfox8, follow Morgana @MorganaRelina, and follow Seamus @Seamus2389. Seamus is without an H. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to us this week. Bye.